First of all, I would like to thank you all for your continuous support. I grew up seeing my father struggling for justice and rights. This struggle and his activism made him forced to live in exile. We came back to Bahrain in 2001, and seeing my father with his continuous struggle since then, I am continuing the struggle from here, and until justice prevail, until human rights prevail. My father, Khaliel Halwachi, 57 years old, were arrested early morning on September 3rd, 2014, without an arrest warrant, when a large number of civilians backed with security forces sieged his house in Jabalat Habshi, accompanied with 9 police cars, 4 civilian cars, and 1 police bus. Security forces went directly to the top floor of our home, when my father confronted them with a request to show an official search warrant. However, a security force replied that warrants aren't needed. They requested from my father to walk to the ground floor, where he was shocked to see a weapon he was accused of hiding in his house, and that this weapon was brought to him by one of the defendants in the same case, Hussein Ja'far Buhamed, 18 years old. My father denied the existence of the weapon and said that the security forces have brought it to his house. However, the security forces insisted on the accusation, and he was forced to leave the house with them without an arrest warrant. He was forced to go on the police bus and was taken to Criminal Investigation Directorate, CID. Other police forces remained in the house in search and tampering with his belongings. 2 of his laptops, a mobile phone, and a passport were confiscated, in addition to his driving license that was given to the family later. However, this confiscation of belongings remains unlawful as long as no search warrant was present. Upon entering the CID, my father was blindfolded and handcuffed. He was forced to stand for long hours, was prevented from entering toilets and from prayers. After long hours, he was transferred to Rifa police station. On the early morning of Thursday, September 4, 2014, during the transfer to Rifa police station, he witnessed the torture of other detainees who were with him on the bus. Soon after his arrival to Rifa police station, he was not able to sleep. Thus, he was transferred back to the CID. My father testified that while he was dragged in the CID, he was avoiding to step on other detainees that were lying on the floor on the building corridor. My father, Khalil al-Halwachi, was subjected to abuse and humiliation. He was put in a narrowed, low-temperature cell for long hours and was prevented from entering the toilet. In addition, he was subjected to psychological torture during the investigation, in which the investigators claimed to use special methods of torture that the Attorney General and the coroner won't be able to identify. My father was forced to confess on the charges brought to him under pressure of torture and threats of targets to his family. In addition, he signed the confession papers while blindfolded. The charges brought against him are possession of weapon and beatings, bombings. My father said that during the investigation he was informed that other detainees had testified his involvement in the charges brought against him. It is important to mention that these young detainees were subjected to severe physical and psychological torture. On the other hand, my father was prevented from communicating with his family and his lawyer in an attempt to isolate him from outside world. My father reported that during the investigation, most of the questions were about his activity in the Islamic Action Society Amal, dissolved on July 9th, 2012, which most of its members are now in jail, including Sheikh Mohammed Al-Mahfouz, General Secretary, and Mr. Hisham Sabbagh and Mr. Talal Al-Jamri, which shows that the arrest and trial of my father is because of his political activity as a founding member of Islamic Action Society Amal. On Thursday, September 4th, 2014, my father, along with the detainees Hussein Ja'far Mohammed, Hassan al-Sheikh, and Rida Khalil, were transferred to the public prosecution. My father's request to allow his lawyer was rejected, which is a violation to Bahrain's national law and international law. In the public prosecution, he signed the same confessions that were present to him at the CID, and was told if denied the charges, he was to return to the CID again. The public prosecutor ordered his detention for 60 days under the Terrorism Act, an act condemned by the international human rights organizations. On September 6, 2014, we received a call from him stating he is present in Dry Dock Prison. His voice seemed very tired because he was prevented from sleep during the investigations. He was also forced to stand in the cell in Dry Dock Prison without any consideration to his age. The first visit to my father was a week after his detention in Dry Dock Prison, on Wednesday, September 10, 2014, where he had notified us with the mentioned above. It is worth mentioning that family and lawyer of my father went to the public prosecution on September 4th, 2014, to submit a letter asking for the presence of his lawyer during all the investigations. In addition, a complaint was submitted against the illegal detention and for the search of the house. My father was arbitrarily renewed detention 6 times until his case now was referred to the higher court on March 22nd, 2015. My father, Khalil Al-Halwaji, lived in Stockholm, Sweden for 14 years before returning back to Bahrain in 2001. He is the victim of torture and a former detainee at the period of so-called national safety, when a serious event of human rights violation took place in Bahrain. He was then tortured in the Interior Ministry building called the Castle, located in the capital Manama, and where he reported hearing the sounds of torture and the screams of victims in the corridors of the building. We were not able to see him back then until the day he was presented to the military court, taking into consideration that he did not know what his charges until that day. He was then released after found not guilty by a military court. My father is also witness to the ill treatment prisoners suffered from, including minors, from beatings and cursings when mass security men led by prison officers attack the wards where prisoners sleep at night. The Convent on Civil and Political Rights, Article 9, states the following: everyone has the right to liberty and security. No one shall be subjected to arbitrary arrest or detention. No one shall be deprived of his liberty except on such grounds and in accordance with such procedures are established by law. Anyone who is arrested shall be informed at the time of the arrest of the reasons for his arrest and shall be promptly informed of any charges against him. Anyone arrested or detained on a criminal charge shall be brought promptly before a judge or other officer authorized by law to exercise judicial power and shall be entitled to trial within a reasonable time or to release. We demand the immediate and unconditional release of my father, Khalil Al-Halwaji, and to stop targeting activists. We call for an open investigation in the allegations of torture and to hold all those responsible accountable. We call for an independent judicial system that should seek justice and accountability and should not be used a political prosecution tool against political and human rights activists. Thank you all.